My name is Ignacio Correa-Ortiz. I am the AIA Denver Director for this year. I really appreciate everybody joining today. This is the AIA Colorado Denver Section Town Hall meeting. So that means that this is a conversation. You will have a Zoom webinar chat where I would be able to see your input as well as the Q&A function within the Zoom website. So please bear in mind, this is a conversation, but in order to make it a town hall, I have invited a very good sample of membership within the AIA Denver section. The theme for today is resiliency, how to adapt, recover, regenerate, and pivot. And if you read my write-up, it sounds almost like a dance. And it really is a dance because we have to move really fast and adapt to the current situation. Not only what is happening in terms of the challenges that COVID-19 has put not only on us as architects, but to the entire society, as well as the changes that we're going as a society that wants to be more open and inclusive. So again, adaptation, recovery, regeneration, pivoting are basically elements that may be able to allow us to be more resilient. So we're going to talk about then firm leadership. How are firms and also architects, how are architects who are independent or small firms or associate architects, how is everybody basically doing through this? We had, previous to this, a survey. We received a number of, actually 34 different responses to the survey, so I will make a reference to that. But before that, let me tell you who is in the panel today. You don't see her face right now. We're trying to go through a couple of the technical problems that we had in the beginning, but Julianne Scherer is a principal with HDR and is basically our representative from the large firm bracket, if you want. Middle firms, we have from Anderson Mason Dale, Joey Carrasquillo. He's also a principal. A representative of a small firm, actually a very exciting small firm, ShelterBelt Design, Nicole Delmage. And young architects, we have Kyleen Rockwell. She came to Denver to work for HKS as a building performance engineer. And last but not least, our associate representative in the AIA board, Lauren Falcon, associate of AIA, works for Stantec. Very good. So before I go into announcements, I want to really briefly read a couple of the highlights from the surveys. Basically, one of the questions is, what are you doing and how are you staying afloat? And many people's responses were they were meditating, they were doing yoga, and they were basically taking care of their individual health. So that is actually very good. But there were also some critical questions, some critical responses to the questions. For instance, assuming that every architect is in a typical architectural firm. Some work for government or facility management organizations of other kinds. I am scrolling here very quickly through my screen, and one of the answers that I see here is that some people actually have lost their job, and even some people who just graduated with a Master's of Architecture degree in May and had a job offer had to wait now because the job offer was rescinded. So indeed, difficult times, but there are still people who have a positive mind. A response here is find meaning behind the practice rather than just doing. So it is about practice. There's also a lot of calls for being a community of architects as opposed to basically competing. Although competition is good, one of the answers was, do not underbid your work because that will hurt us all. Now, we are not price fixing here in this town hall. We're just talking about some of the responses that we have received through this. One of the ways that many people have also replied to is their participation on webinars. Webinars are easy to attend. They give CEUs and so on. So I really appreciate that. And the funniest one of all is, how do you want to have changed as a professional? And somebody respond, become younger. So I assume that is somebody about my age. Well, I'm gonna stop there. There's plenty more, but the tone is right. We are, there's a good level of optimism, and that is important. So announcements. So at this point, we're 4:07. We're right on track. What has the board been doing this year? So these town halls were actually part of the brainstorming of the board, especially given the situation right now. The AIA staff has been really energetic at putting all kinds of webinars and a lot of participation from the community. We have Julianne online. Let's do a little sound test, Julianne. Can you say something?
Hello, this is Julianne Scherer.
Okay, so basically we were having a little bit technical problem. I think that is resolved. So last week we had a West Town Hall. We're having the Denver Town Hall this week, and then early July we'll have early July and mid-July we'll have North and South sections. Part of the work also that the AIA board is doing this year is to restructuring the formation of the sections. This is part of a work that has been on the working shop for the last 3 years, and we're coming to a really good resolution in a way that we'll have an AIA Colorado that is more integrated with its sections and still have the independence that the sections deserve. I want to remind everybody, especially the young architects here, that on July the 20th is the deadline for the Christopher Kelly Leadership Development Program. I highly encourage it. I did not participate on that. I have been in other leadership programs, and any leadership program is actually a good opportunity, not only because you deserve to develop your leadership skills, but as a networking opportunity. We're also reviewing the bylaws of the AIA Colorado as part of the section structure, so stay tuned for that. And in terms of committees and knowledge communities, the board has been very engaged with each one of those. Actually, each one of us members of the board participate in at least one of those committees or knowledge communities. I do the urban design and tangentially a little bit the EDI. Board meetings are very engaged and very productive. And the last announcement I have, and I will repeat this at the end, is the awards deadline is July the 10th at 5 p.m. Please notice that this time will not be extended. Typically, it has been extended. This time it's not going to happen. So if you haven't started working on your applications, please go ahead and do that because you have 10 days left. Last but not least, we'll have another AIA Colorado Town Hall. That would be on July 22nd. So it's not only what we're discussing here at the Denver region, but in terms of some of these issues that I mentioned before. What is the board doing? What are the bylaws changes? And how are the sections going to be structured? So having said that, let me remind you again that we have a Q&A right here on my right-hand side. That's why I'm looking this way. And I'll have also a chat box that should show right here. I don't have any open questions right now, but please feel free to use that as part of the conversation. If I don't see any questions, I will actually get a little sassy and ask a little bit more pointed questions. You will also get credit for your participation in this, so please write in the chat your name and your email, so you will get the learning unit that you deserve. And we also would like to know where everybody is joining from today. So if there's anybody from the neighborhood formerly known as Stapleton, say hello from ex-Stapleton or whatever you want to call it, and or Englewood or whatever it is. Share and relate basically anything that you want to. So before I introduce formally the panelists and let them tell us their story of who they are and how they are coping with the current situation, I'm going to ask Amy to send the audience poll number 1. So please, Amy, send the question. I want to see who is who here. And while we wait, I remind the panelists that you cannot vote. You can only see the questions, but we know who you are. Yeah. By the way, while people are answering this, you may note that it is a majority female panel here. That was by design. So if you as a white male think that you're being excluded from this conversation, please, this is your opportunity to say something. I see Mike from Curtis Park. And other people. Very good. So we have the responses here. So we have 33% owner or manager role in the architectural firm leader. Architectural firm associate, about 42%, the great majority. And industry affiliates, about 25%, and 0% something else. This is really interesting. In the West section, the great majority was architectural firm leaders. Either that's an indicator that smaller firms are participating, or that actually we are in a much greater diversity composition here. So good to see that. I'm going to close that, and we are going to go through the statement. So I'm going to introduce each one of the panelists with an opening statement, their name. Julianne Scherer, please.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I was the one with audio difficulty. You'd think after how long have we been doing this, for 3 months, we'd have it all worked out. But with a new computer today, that didn't quite work for me. So I'm Julianne Scherer. I'm the managing principal of our HDR architecture team here in Denver. And I am also the chair this year of the AIA Colorado Design and Practice Conference. So super excited to be bringing that to you this year, even if it is going to be virtual. So you asked how we are coping with the situation. Ignacio, you want us to answer that? Okay. So a couple of things that I've been doing is, one is keeping active, and maybe that's not much different than what maybe we've been doing prior to. However, what I have found that I have a more calming approach to staying active. So in the mornings, I don't feel like I have to rush through everything because I'm not having that commute, right? And so that's actually having that activity has actually been a little bit more fun, so to speak. So that has given me some vitality to just kind of take on the day. Also engaging in calls. I think we've gotten so used to just emailing and typing all the time, and now actually calling people and talking to them and doing that more often, whether it's with clients or even my team or even friends. That's been really refreshing to do, to remind ourselves of using the phone again and talking to each other. And then finally, it's been checking in with my team regularly. It's been a lot more of an exercise to actually do. Because I realized that when we were together, I was actually checking in with them just as regularly, but it was more spontaneous. So, but doing that has provided some closeness as we are distancing ourselves. So I've enjoyed at least being able to connect with my team and giving them reassurance that we're in this together. And yes, it sucks, and we're gonna make it through. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Julianne. Then we have Joy Carrasquillo. Joy, please introduce yourself and tell us how you and AMD are doing through this situation.
Hello, everyone. Joey Carrasquillo, principal with Anders Masondale Architects. We're a 60-person practice, single studio here in Denver. And I guess when all of this went down, we were kind of in the throes of being enormously busy. So to some extent, the slowness that actually overtook the planet relative to COVID actually helped us take a breath. We actually increased in size to help with our current workload and are endeavoring to maintain our capacity as we move through the summer. I guess relative to all of the issues that have hit our world over the past 3 months, and I guess it's worth reminding everybody that we've only been going through this for 3 months, and there's probably more for us to endure, and so patience is probably of the essence for everybody. I did ask my leadership group yesterday just to offer me some thoughts about how they see things going in our studio, and I'll just throw out some random thoughts, not in any particular order. It seems like access to our clients and our consultants has improved, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. The virtual sessions has yielded more focused discussions. I would say that that's probably more associated with the task-oriented side of our practice, of our vocation. CA has actually been easier. I think our teams out in the field have overcome the initial hurdles, which were more instigated by the protocols that the general contractors had to take. But now that we have protocols in place, it seems like CA has gone more efficiently for our teams. Now, having said that, a lot of our CA work is at the back end. So it'll be interesting to see how some of our work that's now entering CA will manage this process. Autonomy also has proven to be inefficient to some extent, in particular with our younger staff. And I think Julianne touched upon, I think, a critical aspect of everyone's practice, which is the serendipity about how we work. And having the younger staff working out of their bedrooms sometimes does not bode well. And you have to take 3 steps back in order to move forward. And so we're trying to figure out our mechanisms to figure that out. And probably more importantly, within that context, the mentoring of the younger staff has another layer that we need to go through. So I would say that the marketplace has pounced to sell a lot of tools to help us through this process. And we as the human species are compelled by new tools, and to a fault. I think we find ourselves sometimes playing with the tools and not really solving problems. I would say that for the leadership in our group and the older folk, I guess what I'll refer to as the 6th sense to the ongoings in the studio has been stunted, and we need to figure out how to overcome that. And the exposure to this idea of discovery through making is limited right now. and we need to overcome that as well.
Amazing, thank you. We'll come back to some of those themes that you touched there, Joey. But next, I am really delighted to introduce Nicole Delmage with ShelterBelt Design. I was looking through the membership roster, and as a good director should do, like look at who are you really representing, and so I ran into ShelterBelt Design, and it's really interesting. So hopefully Nicole will tell us more about her company and how ShelterBelt Design is doing. Nicole.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Nicole Delmage with ShelterBelt Design, and ShelterBelt is a multidisciplinary practice that is founded on I'm inspired by my family of art makers and builders who are certain that they can do and make anything all by themselves without help. So as we go into this, learning how to accept help has been a really interesting process for me, because me and my 3 employees, we tend to wear all the hats all the time and juggle a lot of things, and it can be a lot of fun. But right now we're having to figure out how to do, how to manage some of the things that we normally would just rely on our wits for, and really reach out and ask for help. So asking for help of each other has been a really powerful bonding opportunity for us as a group. I think that my 2 employees who are younger have bonded incredibly because they've really needed to rely on each other in a way that they didn't need to rely on each other previously. Our youngest member was hired on April 1st, and when COVID started, we had a good conversation about whether or not we could still bring on another team member. So we chose to hire someone even though we weren't certain about our workload moving forward. And it's been incredible because her training has been really thorough. We did onboarding remotely, we did training remotely, and she has hit the ground running very, very quickly and is producing at a level that I was very surprised by. So she's really done very well with being mentored by my second youngest team member, and I'm really impressed with their growth. They've both been taken a very mature and responsible approach to ensuring the success of our firm, and that's been great to watch. It's been really inspiring. We've also really focused on our partnerships. You know, we've talked with a lot of people over the years about we should work together, we should try and make something happen. And one of those relationships has flourished in this context. And it's a direct result of COVID, because this partner is a specialty greenhouse manufacturer, and they were overwhelmed with inquiries about custom residential greenhouses as people are planting their gardens and becoming more self-sufficient. And we've really offered our services to help them respond to all of the inquiries, and where a greenhouse needs a site plan, or where a greenhouse needs a permit, depending on the jurisdictions that we're working in, where the greenhouse structure is attached to another existing structure. We've developed a kit of parts in partnership with this manufacturer in order to meet their demands, and it has fed a lot of work for us and for a couple structural engineers that we work with regularly. So there's been just an interesting opening in our professional world to take advantage of, and it's been a blast. One of our tagline is to design the inside spaces that support outdoor experiences, and I think that we've really been able to sort of look at that carefully and try and find opportunities. And the greenhouse partnership is one of those that's just been a real joy to plug into. It's also been challenging because the fees are small and we have to be very, very efficient with our time. And so that's been also another learning curve for us that we've really embraced. I would say that I think going back to the multidisciplinary aspect of our firm, you know, the art we make and the projects we're developing independently and the work we're doing with our clients, they're starting to cross-pollinate in ways that we weren't expecting. We're just looking at everything with fresh eyes. And I think that for the most part, we feel busy, we feel kind of fresh because things aren't normal. So we're having an opportunity to look at things through those fresh eyes. And I think that that's sort of that's where I'll start with how our firm is responding right now.
Thank you, Nicole. I really appreciate that. Very interesting. We'll get back also to some of those discussions. By the way, if you have a question to any of the panelists, please just put it on the Q&A or even on the chat. I prefer the Q&A because it's closer to my eyes in the screen, but please go ahead. Next, Kyleen Rockwell from HKS. She's a building performance engineer, and welcome, Kyleen.
Thank you, Ignacio. I also like that you've been calling me the young architect. I'm definitely not the youngest in our office, but I'm wondering if maybe young just means that this is my first, economic recession that I've had to deal with in the professional industry. And I've definitely been learning a lot from this. So I've been engaged with the AIA EDI Committee and Sustainability Advancement Working Group. And some background on HKS, we are a global design firm with 1,200 plus employees across 24 offices. But our Denver office itself is just 22 employees, specializing in healthcare, commercial, mixed use, and hospitality. And then my role as a building performance engineer, pretty much just doing anything that requires data validation in terms of energy modeling, daylight modeling, a lot of climate analysis, which I think is particularly relevant for this resilience conversation. And so our firm right now, we've been actively reimagining, our workflow, our ideas, and trying to manifest that into actions that are gonna enhance resilience as it relates to the communities, clients that we serve, and our own firm. And so we've been doing a lot of research, data-driven design outcomes, and even actually changing policy in the firm since COVID happened. And that's based on, weekly survey data that was given out to 1,200 plus employees to kind of drive some of the foundational changes that we've seen. And definitely the catalyst of this was the pandemic. But I think it's also the realization that this pandemic is almost a micro example of what's going to continue to happen to our world as our greenhouse gas emissions increase, as we see more extreme weather events. We're going to have to, I think, as a community, anticipate and design for what's being exacerbated with the pandemic. So we need to be talking about underprivileged communities, social inequities that are being brought to light, healthcare as a human right. And I think just the transformation of, global, local economies, those are all things that we're seeing little stories of right now that are just gonna get worse and worse. And I think, like, from what I've been seeing in our firm, in our country, we're seeing that even though, individuals are trying to change their behaviors personally, that's not enough to tip the scales. So I think it's really important to have this conversation as an architectural community and try to make some systemic changes that are past due.
Wow, systemic changes. That's a big word.
I'm an engineer, sorry.
No, that's cool. That's quite all right. And by the way, anybody who's younger than me is a young person. So I guess most of the panel here. All right, well, last but not least, Lauren Falcon. She's an intern architect, I assume. Is that the right title, Lauren? And with Stantec. So, Lauren.
Yeah, so Lauren Falcon, Stantec Architecture, technically now I think referred to as design professional. I am in the City Park West neighborhood, so I get to hear the monkeys on my back patio sometimes, which is great. That's also been part of how I've been coping, just staying outside. And if anything, through this whole thing, I've been able to spend more time outside, which has been really nice. And although I feel like it's been difficult to go places, my work has also been more flexible just because of the remote nature of everything, which has been really enjoyable. So just definitely agree with the systemic changes, but I'll let you get more into that, Ignacio, and ask some of the more pointed questions.
Yeah, well, since you say that, one of the things that Joey said was about, let me see if I have the spontaneity versus the plan. No, that was, sorry. Hold on, let me get to that. Well, I cannot even understand my own notes, but basically the gist was that the younger architects, is a lot harder to give them the independence because it's a little bit harder to basically get to the point as to what to expect from them. What is your response to that? What do you see in other associate architects, and you know, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I would definitely say that it's been a lot more difficult. I'm usually not the person to say or to not ask questions, but if you are that type of person and you are sort of introverted, it's really hard to know when someone needs more guidance because you just can't see it. Not only that, those organic conversations just can't happen. So you actually have to plan time to talk to people about learning new things and what you've covered that week. So that's definitely become a scheduled event for us associates at our company. We get together once every Monday and talk about what we're working on, if we've learned any new tricks and anything like that, which has been really helpful. But yeah, it's definitely more difficult. At first, we started using some virtual tools that didn't allow us to, share screens as easily, point to things, and however how simple that sounds, it's challenging if you can't have or do any of those things. If you can't see someone's face, it's hard to know how they're reacting to something, if they get it, if they don't get it. So just some new challenges.
Very good, thank you, Lauren. Alan had asked a question, I guess, to the panel as to what percentage of the staff continues to work remotely. Julianne responded that it's about 80% plus. What about at A&D, Joey?
So I believe the current protocols per the state and the city is that we should be operating at 50% capacity. I think we've yet to hit 25%. And so we have a plan in place allowing for staff to come in 2 days a week. We've mandated that everybody stay out of the office on Fridays so that we can do deep cleaning. But right now it's optional, and I think folks are still preoccupied for any number of reasons. We have some mothers to be in the office. We have folks with pre-existing conditions, and we've encouraged them to simply stay home, not to come in. And then we have folks like myself who are violating the protocol and coming in every day. But we have not exceeded 25% capacity. And again, we are following all of the protocols that have been put forth by the CDC and our state and local officials.
Mm-hmm. Kyleen, how about at HKS?
I would say we probably have 10% in the office per day, and there's definitely been a lot of reboot conversations where there's a health questionnaire we need to fill out, the night before we go into the office. We're scheduling our shifts for contact tracing, maintaining, wearing a mask in the office. So there's been a lot of protocols in place, but the company policy right now is still very much so you can make your own decision. No manager should be imposing that you have to go to the office if you don't feel like you can.
Got it. And I see Julianne assenting to that as well. Anything else to add on that, Julianne?
Right, we have all those protocols in place as well, and so we don't, there's probably, like I said, 80% of or plus are working still remotely. We are an essential business as probably HKS because we do infrastructure as well as healthcare, and so everyone's required to wear a mask. You saw us when I was dealing with the audio issues. We were in here with our masks on and social distancing and all of that, following all the guidelines. But it's up to the individual to come back when they feel best suited to do so.
Got it. Nicole, when you go out on the field, you take your Westphalia camper van. That's kind of your mobile office. Do you go by yourself, or the staff goes with you? How do you do that?
It depends on the situation. We have a couple job sites where I go by myself or my employees go by themselves. And if we both go, we go separately. So we're not in the same vehicle together. And we practice masks and gloves when we're on site, and expect everyone on job sites to respect our social distance.
Got it. Anything else to add to this conversation, Lauren?
No, just focusing on one other thing for our office was building commissioning, making sure our building systems were up and running. We are in a tower, so we can't exactly just open the window and have access to fresh air. So being conscious of that.
Okay. Now, this is a difficult question for some, but if you have anything to share about layoffs or furloughs or anything of that matter, and the application of the protection program for employees, what insights do you have that may help to some of the audience? So let's go with Joey first. You have a puzzled face, so do you want me to rephrase the question?
Yeah, maybe frame it differently. I guess I wasn't quite following
the
essence of the question.
So I guess it had two parts. The first part is, have you had to lay off or furlough people in order to to balance your books? And two, how is that? The assistance from the federal government. How have you applied for it? Have you gotten it? And how is that working?
So no, we have not furloughed or laid off or downsized. I think I actually mentioned that in midstream, we actually brought on some staff to assist us with our current workload. Regarding the loan program, we did secure funds to support us, and those funds are sitting in the bank. And I guess it remains to be seen whether we're going to be turning over those funds back to the U.S. government or not.
Very good. Anybody else? I'm just trying to read your body language. So if you want to jump on the question, just go ahead and add more. Otherwise, I'll go to the next question that we have here. This is from Anonymous. And Anonymous asks, in a post-pandemic world, will you still allow or even encourage employees to work remotely, or will you yourself work at least part of time remotely? So I don't know where to start this time. Nicole, you work most of your time remotely, is that right? Or other than the Westphalia, you have another office?
We are, I'm the only one in the office. My employees are working remotely currently. One of my employees has come in occasionally, but it's mostly due to my employees' spouses' jobs that they are working remotely. Although we have really taken this opportunity to take our remote working skills and be in places that we really want to be. And so we've been working from home or working from, in my case, a small condo in the mountains, and going up there for a week at a time and being as productive now as is our normal in a remote working situation. It's been, we've been rethinking that aspect in an ongoing way.
Got it. Kyleen, how's it going at HKS, and how much remote work are you doing, and how much remote work are your principals doing?
So this has actually changed or created a new policy at HKS. We've, I think in the last week, announced a flexible work policy that is going to be live right now, but also meant to be applicable post-pandemic. And that policy would give people the option to opt in to a flex work policy where they can work remotely for 2 days a week. And that was really born out of a lot of the survey data that we got, seeing that this was something that the majority of people in our firm wanted, and also seeing that our productivity wasn't hurt in this kind of work from home scenario. And I would say right now, most of the firm is still working remotely.
Yeah. Julianne, your opening statement said that one of the benefits that you had seen is not having to worry much about the rush. So I assume that you are doing a good amount of time working remotely. Will you keep that in the future?
Yeah, so I personally work remotely at least 3 days a week. I come in 2 days a week. And as a global firm, we've been practicing, I guess you would call, remote working for quite some time, because we work, all of our studios will collaborate and work together. So we're constantly, kind of working remotely. I would say several of my teammates here are working on projects in Germany, San Francisco, Chicago, and Australia. So it's not unusual to be working in this way. Now, coming into the office would be, a bit unusual to not see everybody's faces and be connected and be together. However, we have had a flex policy in place either way. So all my teammates, if they're working from home for different reasons, those were already policies that were already in place, and they have the option to do so as long as they, basically let me know, and it's working okay. So I think I don't see much changing in terms of people coming into the office or working remotely. I think it's going to be like this for quite some time, and it's kind of what we've been dealing with prior to the pandemic and such. And I am planning on working still remotely as well on occasion, so I can not feel so rushed in the morning.
I agree with you, and if I was a panelist, I would add also some of the comments on the benefit. But in order to keep on going, anybody else wants to chime in on this question, or should I go to the next one?
I have some thoughts.
Please, Joe.
I needed to look through the list of participants to see who from my practice was on it, to couch my words. The state of affairs in our world right now, they're not unique. I mean, we've gone through these issues of social injustice, and the world has gone through pandemics before. And I guess I would say that as it relates to architecture, I mean, to piggyback on what Julianne said, there is no new paradigm here. Many of us have been using technology and virtual presence as a way of conducting our business. And as a matter of fact, there are firms who are structured to operate in this manner, right? There are small boutique firms whose leadership reside in coastal regions, and they only get together 4 times a year to talk about business, but they conduct architecture, they deliver architecture in the world in this manner. And so I think for many of us, the issue is that we didn't structure our firm to operate in that manner. So those are the adjustments that we're making right now. I would say that a conversation associated with like having to convince architects to come back to our studio conceptually is problematic to me. You know, if it belies the notion that we can deliver quality environments, if we're interested in simply working from home, I think that there's a disconnect there. And you know, ideally, we at AMD will reconnect back to our physical studio because it's part of the culture that we've had for 45 years, and it underpins the work that we do. I think it's fair to say that we are all professionals, and we've proven that we can work in this landscape. But the question is whether the work is at its best operating this way.
Good point. Will, and then brings me to a follow-up question, which is, let's say then the practice in there, we are counting on having a vaccine sometime in the near future. Some people say early next year, maybe later, and so on. How is that changing the way you practice in a studio, like the one at your place, Joey, or even for the clients that you're designing office space and so on? Are those changes going to be permanent? What are the implications on the mechanical systems and so on?
Well, I guess I'll start by saying one of the things that's very forgiving right now is that we're all living this way together, right? So it's not just us, it's our clients, it's our consultants, it's our user groups. And so we're all navigating through this world that we live in today. And we're doing it with imperfection, right? But it's forgiving. I mean, everybody understands what we're in. And I think it's fair to say that we're all trying our best to navigate through all this as best we can. You know, as it relates to the design of facilities, I mean, we have already been working with institutions across the Rocky Mountain West and helping them figure out how they're going to be opening up facilities in the fall. So, you know, doing COVID plans for higher education institutions specifically is already work that's ongoing in our office right now. And we probably get a phone call a week from somebody who either has additional real estate that they need to plan for, or new clients that are trying to plan for whether it's them opening up in the fall or next year sometime.
Got it. Kyleen, you work on a building system. So what is on your front on that? What is the change? Any insights that we could all learn from?
Yeah, I mean, I think ASHRAE right now, they're recommending increased ventilation if possible, but a lot of times you have to be cautious with that. Your mechanical systems may not have the capacity to bring in that additional ventilation. So that's definitely one thing. And then I think the other hot topic is relative humidity. We want to be able to keep our relative humidity between 40 and 70% to ideally be able to, you don't want to be too low in terms of humidity or too high. And that's, I think, actually the biggest struggle for Denver. And I know in our office building, we've had air quality sensors going since January. And we've seen our relative humidity maybe is like 10%. typically, which is, I'm guessing, pretty typical for, a high-rise building with, a VAB system. And we try to put in humidifiers to, condition that space, and it barely did anything. So I think we had to think about how we're going to design, maybe with more operable windows, designing for adding humidification into programs that typically would not be humidified environments. So
I like the operable windows. Anybody else? Anything to add to this? Okay, looking for, the next question has to do then with, right, we have to adapt to some of these situations, but we can, the biggest challenge that we have as architects, especially architects who are in private practice, is who the client is and how to choose the client, basically, in order to be conscious with the response that we're giving to the environment as well as to society. So if I was going to frame this question is, how would you educate your clients, or would you prefer to have a different type of client that you have right now? And I don't think there's clients watching here, so please be honest.
I'd like to chime in and say that I feel like my clients, existing and new, are educating themselves before they engage with me. And an example of that would be, let's see, I have a client who's very social, very interested in hosting events in their personal home, and trying to understand if they're going to be able to do that and what that looks like for their opportunity with architecture. And they came to me with, how can I create outdoor rooms that feel architecturally like we're being held in a way that architecture offers. And we're doing a small cluster of buildings that contain outdoor space in a very intentional way, so that they can have, they have small events for music, they have small events for, they raise money for nonprofits. And so their solution is to take their events outdoors, but to try and create an environment that feels special and feels contained in the right ways.
Very good. Anybody else? Go, Julianne.
Ignacio, it's Julianne. So for us, since we do quite a bit of healthcare, or known globally as a healthcare architects, some of our clients that are not in the healthcare market sector have talked to us about how could we implement, and have asked our subject matter experts to get into conversations with them about what they can do to make their environments more health conscious in different ways. And, maybe that's, a lot of it also has to do with, Kyleen, as you're saying, with mechanical systems, right? And how does their negative pressure and positive pressure, and where can we implement some of these ideas through outside of hospital types of buildings and such. So that's been one of the things that's been an interesting piece. And then also looking at our healthcare clients have come to us to start to look at when there was the surge, what are those temporary type of buildings that could be done, tents and such like that could be really safe. And maybe it ended up being, is it not for the COVID patients? Maybe it's for the other patients that are not that sick, or how they would go and do vice versa, where they would treat patients. So that's been an interesting piece to this.
Thank you, Julianne. Anybody else? Yes, Lauren, please.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the times education comes down to experience. And if anything, right now, all of our clients have experienced quarantine in some way, shape, or form. So it should only make our jobs easier in advocating for cleaner air, in moving towards more well standards. So I think overall, in a weird way, in a positive way, this has changed our clients' perspective on what they think of space and the cleanliness of air and how important that is.
Very good. Okay, well, let's pivot here. And let me ask you, pardon the pun, how would you pivot then at this point? Whether it is new markets, a new philosophy, what has this time enabled you as a person and as a member of a company and of an industry to pivot? What is the new direction? As I was saying in my metaphor in the write-up, this is like dancing, and then the pivot point is when you land on your 2 feet and looking into a new direction. Joey said in the beginning today that we're just at the onset of this pandemic, and we don't know where the end is. So what is the next step?
I have one thought around how we have pivoted on one project that I can see being really effective for us in the future. Our relationship with other architects is starting to shift. Sometimes there have been times when we've been the design architect and transitioned a project to a local architect as the architect of record. And last month, we forged a new relationship with another architecture firm because we felt like we couldn't travel to a site that was out of state. And we built a relationship not only with the other architecture firm, but also brokered a relationship with our client so that we could successfully transition the project to a local architect who had boots on the ground. And I'm excited about that because of the competition versus collaboration potential. And I think that I personally have really early in my career bought into the competition aspect of what we do. And now I'm really challenging myself to be a collaborator with my architecture peers.
Very nice. By the way, audience, more questions, please type them in your Q&A. And we're talking about pivoting, and I am excited to hear what else our panelists have to say about pivoting.
I think at HDR, one of the things that we've been developing, we've been working on it for a while, maybe other people have as well, but figuring out how when we've had our community meetings and engagements and things like that, where we make it more of a workshop, hands-on, how do we make that into a virtual game? And so that's been something that we've done so that the clients can still have a hands-on experience. However, it's virtual, right? We're not actually playing with pieces of paper and such. But that's been one thing that has worked actually very well with several of our clients that were maybe a bit suspect at first, but we said let's test it and see how it goes, and people have been very receptive to it, and I have a feeling that that's something that's going to continue, because yes, this is going to be going on for quite some time. And similarly to Nicole, some of our projects that are not local, having those boots on the ground and finding team members to collaborate with, to be the ones that are having that engagement, whether it's during construction administration and such. rather than doing the flying and getting to the spots that we need to get to.
Very good. Anybody else? Go ahead, Joey.
I guess regarding the health pandemic that we're in today, you know, I think I said we're going to need to be patient, but we also need to do certain things. I think as a national culture, I think we need to ask for some change in November so that we can help our medical contemporaries to help us get out of this mess that we're in right now. And so, you know, a lot of it is in our control as citizens of this country to push for us getting out of this thing sooner than later. But I think there is the bigger pandemic, for lack of a better word, which is the one that we've had for so many years, right? Which is this equity, diversity, and inclusion issue. And I think we all as architects are aware of that situation. I think here at AMD, we are keenly aware of the fact that our Black population here in our studio does not exist. And we recognized that as early as the beginning of last year. And our EDI group here in the office had begun to come up with strategies on trying to figure out ways to grow the Black architect population here in Denver, because it doesn't really exist. And you know, I became the recruiting principal here at AMD as a way of beginning to have conversations with universities across the country as a way of bringing population or having interest develop, you know, to be able to tap into institutions who do have population that we could perhaps bring to Denver to practice architecture. You know, our current affairs right now has stunted that effort to some extent. Mm-hmm. But we continue to have conversations with institutions just to keep a pulse on what's going on and trying to make connections with soon to be graduates, folks who are just starting their careers in institutions in the East Coast, in the West Coast, in the Midwest, down in the South, as a way of initiating a process that will allow us to bring Black architects to Denver. And I think that all of us can begin to help each other out in advancing that cause.
Very good.
It's imperative to advance. I was just going to say it's imperative to advance not only our profession but humanity. So it's an imperative piece that we have to be a part of and activate and make happen.
I agree. Actually, I'm going to make a quick pause here so I can ask Amy to put the next poll question up, which has to do more with the usefulness of this program and what do people want to see in that program. In the meantime, you know, while you look at what are your options, basically, what activities would you like to see in the Denver section? Check one of those. Again, the panelists cannot vote. But let me give a little bit of a reminder of what the AIA, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee is doing. Larry Sykes and Amy Dvorak are co-chairing that committee, and it's actually a committee that I chaired in the past, which talks about some of the issues that Joy was referring to. It's not only it's incredible because less than 1% of the architect population in Colorado is African American, as we have more, close to 10% population, at least in the Denver region, of African Americans. But it's not only that, it's also the Latinos. Joey is of a Puerto Rican background. I am of Colombian background. And, you know, the Arkansas River used to be the boundary between Mexico and the United States before the Mexican-American War, what these Mexicans call actually the American invasion. I was just this weekend in the San Luis Valley. We don't see an equitable participation of Latinos in the profession in architecture and in many other professions, actually. Even though when you go to the construction sites, it's overwhelmingly Latino, the workforce there. So, you know, that is food for thought as well. Okay, let's close the poll, Amy, and see what responses do we have. Wow, so it's pretty spread. It looks like the town halls are good. We have, again, on July the 20th, the AIA Colorado Town Hall, virtual happy hour or coffee hour. In person, that has a 33% respondents. Milestone celebrations got 0, but more opportunities to earn health, safety, and welfare credits and more leadership development opportunities. So thank you for responding. I guess it is 5:07, so we're gonna taper off here. I think that we have walked into a field that we have to not only be very conscious about how the architecture profession is more just and equitable, but also, I was in a panel, let me talk about this for a little bit. I was in a panel with the Rocky Mountain Land Use Institute earlier today, and I was co-chairing one of the breakout rooms in which the discussion is about the institutional racism that exists in our society, and how you know, we had samples from some of the speakers, how just by virtue of being African American, or even couples that were one was Black and the other one was Anglo, that was even in the same couple for lending practices and so on, there was preference or one or the other, just based on race, which is simply a social construct. Genetically, there is no difference in this. But the question was, like, what are the roots of this institutionalized racism? And we go all the way down to the monopoly capitalism that really dominates our culture, and we cannot disassociate from that. For instance, I would not like to give my 401k, which is mostly on Wall Street, just because there is ties to that monopoly. So what are the key questions that we need to be asking in order to raise that consciousness and our leadership as architects? All right, let me phrase it a different way. We are ingrained in the institutional racism is very deep. We all are part of it. We invest in it with 401ks and so on. So is there a way that we can make sure that we're at least helping the next generation to be a little bit more equitable, a little bit more just, a little bit more fair. And if I mean, I'm not asking for a silver bullet, but does that touch you? What emotion does that bring up in you then?
Yeah, Ignacio, one of the projects that we did, I guess it was technically R&L, but everyone's still there. So we did this thing, it was called Project Pipeline. And we brought in a bunch of students, and one of the activities we did was based around urban planning. And I was sitting with this younger girl, probably middle school, and we did a map on what was in the radius of her community. So her house, you know, 5-minute walk, 15-minute walk, 30-minute drive, and the circles went out. And there were some circles where it was just like, she's in middle school, so she wants to spend time, you know, outside with her friends, walking around, maybe going to some shops. And we're looking at the map, and that's a 45-minute drive for her. And we sat down and we're like, okay, is that fair? That's a 45-minute drive for you. And she just looked at me and she's like, I've never been asked that question. So to just think about space differently and educating just the younger generation on things that they should be thinking about, if even their community is fair, and just bringing light to that should help, hopefully, with the situation. But obviously it roots deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And
Julianne.
I would say if institutionalized racism is based on capitalism and money and such, then I think as leaders, it's our responsibility to really look at what we're paying our employees to participate in the profession, and really helping them grow not only with the knowledge of the profession, but also be able to stand on their own 2 feet and monetary wise be able to have a life. And I'm glad to be finally in that position where I can make a impact on it. And it took a long time to get there, a lot longer than probably most.
Hey, you have been an active participant, and I will appreciate that. Anybody else? All right, Joy, while you ponder, I see your pondering thoughts. One of the issues that was discussed then in that panel was about housing. One of the things I do with my free time, other than serving as your Denver director, I am also in the Denver Planning Board, where we look at the planning and zoning issues. It's called the Planning and Zoning Commission in other towns. And one of the things here in Denver is that although we have a form-based code that it's pretty good, and it's a great model for other communities, one of the things that we are not there quite yet is on the legislative side, in which we cannot guarantee a affordable housing for our community, and we have become a gentrified community. And so the question is, and maybe that's what I was alluding to when I was talking about choosing our clients and so on. But it's more than that. It's you as an architect, you have to be in business, but really, how can we enable the development of other clients that do not exist right now? The nonprofit corporations that are owned by communities and so on, that will actually help us get closer to a better distribution of home equity. Let's see. Gary Desmond asks how many people attended this meeting. I have 33 people in my chat here. We had more than that registered. Okay. Anything else? Oh, I'm looking here. Okay. Very good. If you want credit, please sign in the chat, and you'll get that credit. It is 5:15. I'm going to let you go around. I'm going to start from a reverse order from where we started. So please, parting thoughts, and Lauren, you're first.
Yeah, I'm just, I guess, just happy to be here. Sometimes associate or design professional level isn't in some of these panels, but so just happy to be here and hear everyone's perspective on the current situation.
Thank you. Kyleen.
Yeah, I think we've been seeing that storytelling, shared experiences, outreach. I think those are the tools that we're going to have to, get a more diversified design out there into the world, more diversified teams. And I think with that type of organization, we should hopefully be able to deliver designs that can start to address these issues that have been happening for all of history, but actually address them with architecture in a way that's going to make a change.
Thank you, Kyleen. Nicole.
Thanks for having me. And I just wanted to circle back to one of the questions and respond in the sense that having opportunities for education around some of the financial skills, and I know that there's been some really great emphasis on this, but if you learn what a mortgage is in grade 11, there's an opportunity there to develop skills around ownership or simply understanding how land is used. And I'm just sort of closing with that because I feel like it's a comfortable place to make a step, put your toe in the water, but then needing to go further and do more challenging conversations that go beyond basic skills.
Thank you, Nicole. Joey.
I guess I'll circle back to an observation that I made earlier that, right now what's making this condition forgiving for all of us is that we're living it together. Mm-hmm. And I would say that at some point, we all as architects are going to be somewhat responsive to how the rest of the world mobilizes. But we as architects can contribute toward influencing, where things go, right? We're in the business of shaping the world. And I think we need to live within that mindset to be able to contribute to how we will all continue to prosper on this planet.
Very thoughtful, Joey. Thank you. Julianne?
Well, mine's somewhat similar in that, as architects, this is really everything that we're dealing with now and that we have been dealing with is in our DNA. We're built for this. We have the mindset to help to build the human spirit and create a world that is just. And it's our responsibility to do that. Yes, we went to design school, but it goes deeper than that. And that's, if any profession or if any persons have been built for these kind of challenges, disruptions, it's architects. So step in, step up, and let's make it happen together.
Thank you, Julianne. All right, so it's about 5:20 and we are right on track. I really appreciate all of your thoughts and your engagement. And first of all, accepting this invitation to communicate with our members. My function here is to go back to the AIA Colorado board and say, hey, listen, this is what I heard from the Denver crowd. And it has to do with, first of all, a sense of camaraderie. I mean, in terms of sense that we're all together in this one, as Joey said, that this is going to go for a long time, and that our association between us is going to be valuable for the survival and the prosperity of our practices and of our lives as architects and members of a society. I took a whole bunch of notes, education being one of those, and the fact that we are all aware that there are some institutional changes that need to happen. We obviously don't have the answers to how to change the very foundations of society, but we definitely have an intent in being active participants. I just saw a question that popped here, and I will bring that also to maybe the town hall for the statewide, which is on July the 20th. The question is there a way that the audience can talk in future town halls? I think that is good, because that's the purpose of a town hall. We may have to figure out how to help our technology do that, but I think that is a fair question. And then also the way how we relate to clients, not only that we have seen the improvement on our communications, not only internally, but also with our clients. There are still areas to work with the younger generation of architects, how to help them be autonomous and yet still mentor them and bring them through the education process as they become a licensed architect over time. We also talked about some of the issues that relate more to the technical aspects of architecture as they relate to social distancing and air quality and so on. So those are kind of some of the highlights that I took here. I really appreciate everybody's participation. Let me give you a reminder that the deadline for the awards will be July the 10th at 5 p.m. No deadline extension this time. The Practice and Design Conference, Julianne, October 14th through the 16th online. That should be an interesting event. By then, we should all be experts on how to get educated and participate online. And a reminder again that the town hall for the AIA Colorado statewide will be on July the 22nd. I'm gonna write down my name and email in case you wanna talk to me as your AIA Denver board member. And I'm going to do that right now. I don't even know how to type. So here's my email address, and please feel free to contact me. I will, before I close this, I'm gonna give my panelists one last chance to chime in if you have any parting thoughts. Okay.
Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for being here. Stay connected. Come to the Tuesdays and Wednesdays webinars. They are all for learning units. And you have my email there. Please contact me if you have any questions. And stay healthy, safe, and positive. And we'll see you at the latest on July the 22nd. I have the 22nd or 20th. Hold on. The 20th? 22nd. Got it. All right. Thank you, Lauren. So thank you very much. It is 5:25 and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.